Everyone is calling this the golden bull cycle, but nobody really knows what's going on. Some think it's going to be the biggest bull market in crypto history, and others say it's going to be the most manipulated, confusing cycle we've ever seen. And the truth is, they're probably both right, but Bitcoin is still by far the best investment. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly what is happening behind the scenes, why ETH is struggling, why altcoins are getting destroyed, and how Wall Street is messing with retail investors on purpose. But more importantly, I'm going to show you how to turn all of this chaos into the biggest asymmetric opportunity of your life. So stick around until the end, because the final piece is what no one is telling you, and it could flip your entire investment strategy upside down. So let's dive in. The crypto bull run of 2025, how to profit from the biggest bull market ever. Now, I want to start off this video by looking at these past cycle patterns. You see, nobody has a glass ball and nobody can predict the future. If someone is telling you or guaranteeing to you that they can understand or know what the future is going to be in terms of, price predictions, then it's total bullshit. The reality is nobody knows. The only thing that we can do is we can study the past to understand what the future may hold for us, all right? Because oftentimes the markets tend to move in cycles. And once you start to zoom out and you start to recognize these cycles, then there is a lot of opportunity to make big money. Now, here I want to show you these previous cycles. So in 2012, we saw that after the halving, we had a nice rally, then we had a big correction down, and then we started the next leg up. In 2016, we had multiple big pumps and then corrections, then another pump, then a correction, then another pump, then another correction. And every time, we've seen these emotions in the market flip. We've seen people going from being extremely greedy to becoming extremely fearful and panicking that the cycle is over. Similarly, in 2020, we also saw the market pump after the halving, then it corrected downwards, and then it went up, corrected downwards, it went up, corrected downwards, and it went up, and it corrected downwards again. And right now, we've seen a little bit of a pump after the halving. We reached an all-time high of around $108,000. So this chart is not 100% accurately updated. So it's a little bit higher than this. And afterwards, we saw a little bit of a correction. So we're hovering around, $80,000, $90,000 right now. And if history repeats itself, then we should be preparing for the next rally up. So why is this the most confusing cycle and the most manipulated cycle that we've seen so far? Well, let's dissect all of that in just a little bit. Here is a tweet by Quinton, and he's saying, institutions are eating up all of the Bitcoin supply through the spot ETFs. So last year, we saw the approval of the Bitcoin spot ETFs. And these Bitcoin spot ETFs, and in case you don't know what a spot ETF is, that's a publicly traded fund which accumulates Bitcoin. So you can get exposure to Bitcoin by simply buying shares in the publicly traded fund. So net inflows into the Bitcoin spot ETFs have outweighed new supply in 2025. So this chart is saying that there were around 12,500 Bitcoin mined, whereas Bitcoin spot ETFs gobbled up around 40,000 Bitcoin. So that's almost 3 to 4, or let's say 3.5 times more than the new supply that was generated by the miners. So whenever there is more demand than new supply is released to the market, that generally is a very bullish signal. Now, if we look at the number of wallets over time, we see that every cycle, every cycle we see a new influx of wallets in the market. So the orange line, that's the number of Bitcoin addresses. And in 2017, we saw a big spike of new addresses. In 2020, we saw a big spike in new addresses. 2024, we saw a little jump in the amount of Bitcoin addresses. But this cycle, 2025, we're not there yet. So we haven't really seen massive retail FOMO entering the market. So that to me is a sign that probably there's still a lot more room for growth within this market. If you zoom out, you understand that right now there's around $900 trillion of value locked in the global financial system. And this is spread across different assets: stocks, bonds, real estate, gold, art, you name it. And of that $900 trillion, only $2 trillion is locked in Bitcoin. And at this point, we are at a phase where the big guys, the institutions, the hedge funds, the pension funds, even governments, are now thinking about allocating a certain percentage of their portfolio to Bitcoin. So there's all of this money, $900 trillion. And there's just a very limited amount of Bitcoin on the open market. So 21 million Bitcoin, that's the maximum supply of Bitcoin that will ever be in circulation. It will take around 100 more years for the final Bitcoin to be mined. And there is just a little bit of available supply on the open market. Why? Because this isn't the first cycle. Right now, investors are becoming increasingly educated, so they understand that they shouldn't just panic sell their Bitcoin. So more educated investors are hodling their Bitcoin. At the same time, we see all of these large institutions like MicroStrategy, which has already bought up over 500,000 Bitcoin, and they're not selling. So all of the available supply in the open market is slowly gobbled up by big players or individuals that are educated and that are not really selling. So with all of this available capital and such limited available Bitcoin, I think we're going to be in for a nice ride. But if we're hearing all of this bullish news, how is it possible that, for example, Ethereum is struggling to break above $2,000? And how is it possible that altcoins are being completely destroyed left and right? If all of this bullish news is happening, how is this possible? Here, altcoins are bleeding. Who is selling? So, guys, I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. Are you guys deep into altcoins? Because altcoin investors haven't really had a very great alt season yet. And many of them are, suffering a lot because their portfolio is down 30, 40, 50, 60, 80, 90%. This is not very comparable to previous bull markets where we saw multiple alt seasons and alts pumped and generated 10x's, 100x's, multiple 100x's, and now that is not really happening. Here, more tweets about altcoins that are bleeding and that are suffering and that are struggling to break above new all-time highs. At the same time, we're seeing that the Bitcoin dominance is going up. In case you don't know what the Bitcoin dominance is, it means the ratio of Bitcoin's value to the entire crypto market's value. So if the Bitcoin dominance is going up, it means that Bitcoin's value is a larger portion of the entire crypto market. Okay, but still, this video is about adoption, all right? We're seeing so much adoption happening right now. For example, one of the largest investment banks in the world, Goldman Sachs, which has around $3 trillion of assets under management, mentions Bitcoin and crypto in their annual shareholder letter for the first time in history. So Goldman Sachs is a key player on Wall Street, and it's an example of a bank. And banks have been attacking Bitcoin for the past 15 years. But now they've come to the realization that instead of fighting it, they can better embrace it. If you can beat them, join them. So now we're seeing Wall Street giants like Goldman Sachs talk about Bitcoin openly and publicly, endorsing it and sharing to the world that it's going to be part of their global strategy. Here you see another Wall Street giant, 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗋 is named custodian for new Bitcoin financing division. It will have $2 billion in initial funding. So we're seeing Goldman Sachs, 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗋, and we're slowly seeing Wall Street wake up. So Wall Street and Bitcoin are crashing. Markets see heavy losses in 2025. So if the big guys are now pumping billions into Bitcoin, why is it that the market is crashing and why isn't it pumping? Well, you need to understand that the big guys, they understand how to use volatility to their advantage. Now, what is volatility? Volatility means the short-term price fluctuations of assets. Now, Bitcoin is a very volatile asset, meaning that it can go up in price and it can go down in price a lot within just a very short time span. You know, I'm pretty sure you've looked at the Bitcoin chart and you've seen these massive price spikes and dumps. You see them all the time. Now, the average investor, the average Joe, goes into Bitcoin or crypto and they believe that they're going to invest in Bitcoin and that they're going to be a multi-millionaire tomorrow or the next week or at maximum within the next 3 months. And when the market doesn't pump and instead it dumps, they become very sour, they're panicking and they want to sell their investment before it's gonna go to zero, right? I better recoup some of my money before everything is gonna go to zero. That is the investment behavior of the average investor. Now, the big guys, they understand how the small guys are thinking. And they on purposely pump and dump the price of Bitcoin in order to accumulate as much cheap Bitcoin as possible. They understand how to play into the emotions of these retail investors. So for the past 15 years, we have been preparing for this moment that yes, institutional money will one day flow into Bitcoin and it will turn Bitcoin into a multi-trillion-dollar asset. And now Wall Street is here. And the retail investors are getting absolutely destroyed. It's like inviting the devil into the market. Because yes, you know, it's really great that they're pumping billions and trillions into the market, but they also understand how to manipulate the market like crazy in order for you to believe that the market might go to zero or that the Bitcoin is going to dump and it's never going to go back again from there. They're really good at making people messing with people's emotions. And that's what's really happening right now. They understand emotions, they understand volatility, and they understand the behavior of the average investor in the market. All in all, even though the market, didn't have, dumped down relatively compared to the previous all-time high of $108,000, between March 24 and March 28, we actually saw a very positive net inflow in Bitcoin spot ETFs. So we saw a $200 million inflow into Bitcoin spot ETFs, meaning that spot ETFs were accumulating Bitcoin and weren't selling Bitcoin. So here you see this tweet: despite the angst around Bitcoin's price, ETF fund flows were positive for 2 consecutive weeks. $1 billion net inflow. Okay, nice. So here you see this chart. So here you see Bitcoin's price, which is the dark blue line, and the light blue dotted line, that is the number of Bitcoin that the spot ETFs have under management. So yeah, it's definitely going up over time, especially if you take into account that the Bitcoin spot ETFs were just approved last year, which is totally insane. Now, globally, there's also a lot of adoption happening. We're seeing that in India, for example, there's roughly 75 million users of crypto. If we look at this at the proportion of the total population, it's around 16%. And we're seeing that large tech-savvy, India has a large tech-savvy population. So it has a lot of engineers, people that are educated within STEM, so science, technology. And people are just looking for a way to diversify, right? And they are understanding the rise of digital assets within the financial ecosystem. Similarly, in China, there's around 35 million users. And that's around 2.7% of the population. And despite that there's a lot of bans and regulations against crypto within China, there's still a lot of investment interest because people don't really trust the government. They want to own an asset that they can control and not the banks and not the government. Similarly, in the United States, around 8% of the population has crypto. That's around 28 million people. There's a lot of institutional adoption. We're seeing more favorable laws and regulations, development of infrastructure. Brazil, again, it's one of those emerging markets where people don't really trust the government and they want to own an asset that they can control. There's also a very high inflation, so people want to hedge themselves against inflation. Indonesia, another very young, tech-savvy population. They're very mobile first. I live in Bali, Indonesia. A lot of stuff here goes through super apps like Grab or Gojek. People are very mobile centric, also a lot of usage of WhatsApp. So anything that's mobile or on their device and that they can easily use, they're willing to adopt it. Similarly in Nigeria, Vietnam, Philippines, Russia, Argentina. So a lot of these economies, they have a very high crypto usage. So their population is waking up and they're understanding the value of it. So that's really great. So why am I sharing this? Is because I want to show you that despite the chart that is not looking that great because we've dumped down from the previous all-time high, I want to show you that there has never been a more bullish time to be in Bitcoin in particular, because there's so much adoption happening. So here again, there's over 320 million crypto owners worldwide. So a lot of it is in North America, in Asia, in Africa, in Europe, in South America, and a very small chunk in Australia, but that's of course proportional to the rest of the population in the world. So there has never been a more bullish time, guys, in terms of adoption. I don't really like to look at short-term price fluctuations in the market. I like to look at long-term fundamentals. The average investor wants to get rich tomorrow, but that's just an unrealistic expectation. Real wealth gets built over time. You simply need to buy and accumulate really great assets and let time do its thing. Focus on your craft, focus on your job, focus on learning skills, focus on building a business. That will make you a great cash flow in the short term. And then use that money to invest it into great assets and do nothing with them. Simply don't touch them. Let time do its thing. All right, I know it's really difficult. I'm really curious for the people that are watching this video right now. Let me know in the comments below. Are you a hodler? Are you a trader? Or do you yet have to buy crypto or Bitcoin? I'm really curious to see how you guys are going about your investments. Now, here is another tweet. 5 new public US companies or publicly traded companies have adopted Bitcoin as a treasury reserve asset this week alone. This week I covered a major story on my YouTube channel about GameStop that is going to raise $1.4 billion in order to potentially or probably buy Bitcoin. Nation state adoption is also happening and the market is still asleep. So again, we saw the price dump from 108,000 all the way to, 78,000, 80,000. Now it's hovering somewhere between 80K and 90K. And, zoom out, guys. We've never seen such favorable regulations come out around crypto. The crypto industry is now being legitimized. The Trump family is getting into Bitcoin mining, is getting into all sorts of crypto companies. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, signed an executive order in order to make the US the crypto capital of the world. We've seen lawsuits being dropped by the SEC focused on attacking crypto companies. And now those same crypto companies, they no more have all of the dark cloud hanging above them that potentially they could get sued or could get attacked or could get chased down by the SEC. So now we see a window of opportunity where the crypto industry can really flourish. On top of that, 26 US states have submitted plans to allocate a portion of their state's assets to Bitcoin. So that's another sign that we are on the verge of widespread adoption. So some of the states on this list: Alabama, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Massachusetts, Michigan, Missouri, Montana, and the list goes on and on and on. Then we have these publicly traded companies that are holding on to Bitcoin. I mean, this is already an outdated chart because MicroStrategy owns more than 500,000 Bitcoin by now. But yeah, look at all of these publicly traded companies that are holding Bitcoin. MicroStrategy, Marathon, Riot, 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗃, Tesla, Coinbase, CleanSpark, and actually the Trump family now joined forces with 𝗗𝗃 to create American Bitcoin, which is an American Bitcoin mining company. Exodus, Metaplanet, Nexon, BitFuFu, Cypher Mining, Canaan, Broker Group, Bitfarms, BitDigital, BitDeer, and all these companies are holding on to Bitcoin. So yeah, those are publicly traded companies. And you know what the interesting thing is? Every time we see one of those publicly traded companies announce that they're going to buy or raise money to buy Bitcoin, we see that their stock price is increasing. So basically the market is validating this move and is saying, guys, you're making the right move by converting a portion of your treasury into Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the best performing asset class of the past decade. It generated 230% of annualized returns between 2010 and 2020. That's more than 10 times more the runner-up, the Nasdaq 100. That's absolutely insane. And with Bitcoin's insane track record, more and more people are being drawn into the asset. And also, if you look at all of the stuff that's going on against the macro backdrop, there's a lot of money printing, very high inflation, and people just are so fed up with stupid decisions from the government which are making their life harder. Now, just in publicly traded company Solidion Technology is going to allocate 60% of its cash flow to buy Bitcoin for its corporate treasury. Yeah, so this is almost a weekly phenomenon right now. All of these publicly traded companies which are making announcements that they're going to buy up Bitcoin. This week, Bitcoin treasury adoption, MicroStrategy purchased 11,000 Bitcoin, Genius Group 48 Bitcoin, 𝗗𝗃𝗃 let's say 80 Bitcoin, 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗃 purchased 4 Bitcoin. So all of these publicly traded companies are now accumulating Bitcoin. And this is already an outdated tweet. This was January 22. Right now, MicroStrategy owns a lot more, and probably these other companies already own a lot more too. And last year, I made the prediction that companies were going to be the next big buyers of Bitcoin, and that's exactly what is happening right now. And the next big buyers of Bitcoin are going to be nation states. Now here, this is exactly what I mentioned before. So GameStop announced that it's going to take some of its cash reserves. So they're sitting around $4 billion worth of cash, and they are going to raise another $1.4 billion of debt in order to buy Bitcoin. And when we're looking at this chart of Bitcoin treasuries, so you're seeing all of these different entities that are holding Bitcoin. So public companies, private companies, governments, ETFs, and DeFi and smart contracts. And you're seeing here, over time, their Bitcoin holdings are increasing. And the biggest increases are in ETFs. These ETFs are accumulating Bitcoin like crazy. Actually, every single one of these segments are increasing their Bitcoin holdings over time. And that is exactly what we're expecting as Bitcoin is becoming a more mature asset class. Something that happened in the past few weeks that few people are talking about is the fact that China sold nearly 20 billion worth of Bitcoin, and the market didn't really move much. So that shows that right now there's a lot of buying pressure in the market, and that bulls are accumulating Bitcoin at very high rates. Right now, the whales are accumulating Bitcoin at record rates. So even though China is dumping $20 billion worth of Bitcoin, there's still enough buyers in the market to absorb that selling pressure. And that's really nice. And that's here exactly this tweet that I'm talking about. So Greg Miller is saying whales are stacking hard. In the last 30 days, large holders, meaning accounts between 1,000 and 10,000 Bitcoin, have accumulated over $5.3 billion worth of Bitcoin. So I really believe that the easiest way to spot profitable trends in the financial markets is to follow what the smart money is doing. Let me know in the comments below if you agree. Rather than trying to figure out everything yourself, all of these whales, these large institutions, they have access to the best traders, the best analytics, the best data sets, and you can copy what they're doing. And that's why I think it's always important to follow what smart money is doing instead of listening to what 99% of the rest of the people are doing around you, the masses, the herd. And oftentimes the herd is wrong. So it pays off to be a contrarian investor, doing the exact opposite of what the masses are doing. So if the masses are selling right now, then probably right now is a really great time to accumulate. So here you see that this orange surface shows that right now there's a net accumulation phase for these large holders. Crypto Russ is saying Bitcoin whales are accumulated. There are 48 new wallets that now hold over 100 Bitcoin each. So that means around $8.5 million per wallet. Those are big numbers. That shows there's a lot of confidence in Bitcoin right now. So here's another important bit of Bitcoin news. So since January 2024, ETFs, public companies, and El Salvador have accumulated 913,000 Bitcoin, and everyone else sold some Bitcoin. So these are mainly individuals. So they sold 657,000 Bitcoin. So the OGs are selling, meaning the long-term individual holders or individual holders, and the institutions are buying. We're simply seeing a wealth transfer from individuals to institutions because the institutions have the dry power, the buying power to buy up Bitcoin in large volumes, and the large holders, the large individual holders, they right now want to cash out on some of their holdings in order to potentially buy a house or use it for someone else or take a little bit of profit. Now, I want to wrap this video up by talking about this tweet. So here you see a parody account of Michael Saylor. This is not his official account, but this tweet is saying Bitcoin is going to $440,000 this year, which is programmed in. Enjoy the golden bull run. Now, this tweet has to do with a prediction that a crypto investor has made on X. So this crypto investor predicted that on, what was it, Pi Day, which was one of those days in the past month, that Bitcoin would hit $84,000 on the closing. And if Bitcoin did that, then it would reach $440,000 by the end of this year. That's according to this prediction by this crypto investor. And now everyone in crypto Twitter is talking about this prediction. And actually, if you're looking at all of the adoption that's happening right now, so we talked about everything. Wall Street is getting into Bitcoin right now. And yes, they're manipulating the market. They're playing with people's emotion. They're creating volatility to shake people out so that they can accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible. But yeah, over the long term, all of this is so super bullish. We're seeing really great favorable laws and regulations that are coming out. Pension funds are getting into Bitcoin. Wall Street giants are getting into Bitcoin. Publicly traded companies are getting into Bitcoin and are constantly accumulating more Bitcoin. And every single week we're hearing new announcements of these publicly traded companies that are coming out and that want to use some of their cash reserves and cash flow to convert it into Bitcoin. And again, there's very limited Bitcoin available and there's an increasing demand over time. And to me, that is the most important thing that you should look at, or that I'm looking at. The average investor wants to get rich tomorrow, but actually real wealth is built over time, because over the short term, price fluctuations can be super intense. The market can dump from here, it can pump from here, but one thing is almost guaranteed, and this is my prediction based on my own market analysis and my understanding of Bitcoin, is probably with a very high probability, Bitcoin is going to be much higher in 3 to 4 years than it is right now. So Bitcoin is dirt cheap. These institutional investors, they understand that Bitcoin is dirt cheap right now. They understand the future growth potential of Bitcoin, especially taking into account that there's $900 trillion of value locked in the global financial system, and that only $2 trillion of that is in Bitcoin right now. So I believe that the future for Bitcoin is really bright. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with that. And I think there's not a better time to be in the crypto markets than there is today. All right, I believe getting really early into a particular asset is really great because there's a lot of really big gains to be made if you're early, but there's also a really big risk because there is not much of a track record. But right now there is a lot of track record, there's a lot of adoption, and the fundamentals are really great for Bitcoin. So if you zoom out and if you can just decouple yourself from all of the volatility happening in the market, then you should be really grateful and thankful of being part of this asset class right now. All right, hey, I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. If you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe to my channel because I'm going to be posting regular videos just like this one to help you to make sense of everything that's going on in the crypto market and to help you to maximize your profits as a crypto investor. And also do me one quick favor, if you enjoyed watching this video and you got good value out of it, then smash the like button. For me, that's a really great feedback mechanism so that I know that you got good value out of it and that I should make more videos like this one. All right, hey. Thanks for watching, peace out, take care, and I will see you in the next one.